So today we're talking about the best way to change or improve your relationship or marriage.
Okay.
So, has there ever been a moment inside of our relationship where you felt like there needed to be a change or an improvement?
Well, we wanted to really work on our communication.
Of course.
Like a while back. So obviously. So we decided to do the podcast together. But I think like us working on ourselves individually is what really improved our relationship.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I want to work on my communication, but what about my communication do I need to work on?
Mm-hmm.
And what about your communication do you need to work on? You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Because I feel like communication is such a broad thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing. And I think also like just working on our own like insecurities
Yeah.
and working through our own fears.
Mm-hmm.
Even the traumas that we've been through, you know, in our childhood and things like that. I feel like even working through those things have improved our relationship.
Right.
And like, you can't work on that for me.
For sure.
I had to work on that myself and you support me through that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I know that there's been plenty of times in our relationship where we've had to pursue making it better, trying to make what we have better and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And we've always had that approach to where basically, you know, the change starts with us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, be the change you wish to see in your relationship type vibes.
Yeah.
And I know that I've gotten that question many a times, you know, online and whatnot, just talking about like, what do we think the best way to improve, you know, a relationship is, which is such a broad way to say it.
Of course.
But I've always believed that any way to change or improve a relationship always starts with personal development and making yourself better.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no way any relationship or marriage gets better until you start working on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always thought that.
Yeah.
Because there's two people in it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? There's two individuals inside of a relationship trying to figure this thing out to make their lives better in whatever capacity that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that the individuals have to first do some work on themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And then they also have to figure out how to be able to work together to where they can get to whatever this improvement is or make this growth or whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. But it all starts with the individuals in a relationship.
I think even in that, I think that can be hard for a lot of people because in order to realize you need to improve on something, you got to realize where you're failing at something. So I think like sometimes it can be hard to really look at yourself in the mirror and say, where do I fall short?
Yeah.
And then being okay with addressing that, like admitting that to yourself and then addressing that between yourself and also the person that you're with. Like, okay, I'm trying to work on this, like support me working on this.
Right.
And, you know, vice versa or whatever, because ultimately one person working on themselves cannot make the relationship better.
Yeah, not completely.
It has to be a joint effort. Like me working on myself and improving myself and you not doing the same for you is not going to make our relationship better. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to be getting better for me and it may cause some issues actually.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because that can, what's something you always say, like when you realize how intentional you are in a certain area, you realize how unintentional other people are in a certain area. So like even growing personally can cause some type of strife. And that's why it's important to keep the person that you're with involved and y'all both be growing together in whatever areas you feel you need to improve on.
That's real.
Yeah.
I know, man, that I remember back when I had read the book No More Mr. Nice Guy. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I read that book and, you know, I had went through a whole freaking mental and emotional like whole revamp after reading that book. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that book, you know, was talking about, you know, improving yourself and working on becoming that better version of you as a man and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I started doing that process in the areas that I needed. And I remember when you read it right after me and you was like, oh my God, like, I don't want my husband to leave me. Like, how did you interpret this book? What was your perspective on it?
Yeah.
And it was one of those moments where it was like, all right, I read it, then you read it. Mm-hmm. And then immediately we had to come together and talk about it because we didn't want there to be like no gray space or wondering how we were feeling after having read the book, which is a great book, by the way. Mm-hmm. Highly recommend, especially for anybody who's been married, you know, a handful of years or more. Mm-hmm. I ain't gonna say, you know, like it's good for men and women. You know what I mean? But it's specifically for men, for sure. But if you're a man, you know, if you're the guy, you should definitely read that book and then also have your lady read it too. Just gonna go ahead and put it out there because it will, you know, it has the potential to make some things get a little complicated when you start working on yourself and your partner doesn't know what changes you're going through and how your perspective is changing, all of that stuff. So it's definitely one of those joint effort books. But anyway, as we were going through that and kind of growing through that moment together, I remember like having to really take a hard look at myself and start like working on some things and then sharing a lot of that stuff with you and like letting you in on like what my mindset was like and what I was growing through. And like, and that took us like on a whole journey to where we had to really kind of figure some stuff out together. You know what I mean? Like not about our marriage, but just like I had to talk to you a lot about who I was being and things that I didn't know that I had lost inside of myself and how I had to start working on some things like that. And then I had to bring you in on it and just let you know what I was thinking, what I was feeling and stuff. So I had to communicate that to you so that way we could be on the same page. Because the thing about it is, like you said, people can start working on themselves and then unintentionally grow apart. But that's the important part about being together in that process and then making sure that you're moving in the same direction together, because if there's no communication there's a huge chance that a void could accidentally get created. Yeah. And so even thinking about that, I think that's really one of those hard things that a lot of people kind of run into is they have that desire to start working on themselves and then excluding their partner and things like that. And so it makes the whole process that much more difficult because it's like you're doing a good thing, but going about it like the wrong way. And so,
for us, like keeping each other involved in everything we have going on has always been our main priority. So when we're growing, whether it be in personal growth, whether it be in our careers, whether it be in parenting, like no matter what it has been, like we're always super intentional about including each other in it because we've seen how it's gone left in other people's lives. So that's something we've learned from other people. It's like, we need to not do that. So let's make sure we communicate on every little thing. Like I'd rather over communicate than under communicate.
Any day.
Like any fucking day. So yeah, and I love that about us. It's like, no, I want you to be I want you to be a part of this journey with me. And for me, it's really important that I'm able to support you in whatever ways that you feel that you want to grow. And I mean, we have a big picture that we're going to. So it's like, how is this growth that you've decided to make going to get you and us in the direction of where you say where we say we want to go in our life? So it's important to be included because we have a very specific vision for our marriage and for our life. So if the growth has nothing to do with that, then we need to be talking. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like there's something there we need to dig up, and we need to both make sure that we're keeping each other aligned in what we say we need to do and in the direction we say we want to go.
Yeah, and the dope thing, especially being married and like married with intention, is the feedback loop is so short. Meaning that if there's an area of myself that I know I need to work on and improve, a lot of the times my first, awareness of that, if I don't figure it out myself, it'll come from you, and vice versa. Like, it's like when you're married to somebody who really sees you and who's been through life with you and who really understands you and how you are and all of those things, like you get feedback very quickly about, either where you could improve, where you're falling short, things that may have started to slip or whatever the case may be. And like, I think that's such a great thing to be able to have because so many people, they just walk throughout life and just doing stuff sporadically or whatever, but there's no real
checks and balances.
Yeah. Great way to say that. For somebody to be able to like either call you out or let you know like, hey, like this ain't it. And then on top of that, when you're married to somebody and you have that shared vision for what you want your lives to look like, where you're growing or whatever the case may be. Like me, I have you to be able to look at and make sure that you can be able to look at me and then make sure that I'm inside of the boundaries that we've created for ourselves and our marriage and where we're going together. And so it's not even, about trying to like just be down somebody's neck all the time or be like a bugaboo, no crap like that. It's like, if we're moving in this direction together as your spouse, as your partner, somebody you're doing life with, we should be there for each other to make sure that we're staying in alignment with the direction that we chose.
And it's easy to receive certain feedback when y'all, like you said, we've agreed on where we said we're gonna go. So if I point out something to you, and I'm like, babe, like you kind of slipping on this thing. We both have said, okay, we need to go in this direction. If this thing that you're doing is not in alignment with that direction, you can easily receive what I'm saying. And the same for me. I can receive that because I'm like, okay, you know what? You're right. Like, what I'm doing now or my ways of being or whatever is not in alignment with what we said. So I need to fix me. Yeah. So this is a growth opportunity for me. So I can receive that because you're right. We agreed on this big thing together. So it's just easy. I think when you do have like a shared vision, it kind of like minimizes certain conflicts because there's no need to have conflict on what we've already agreed on. When
you have a shared vision, when you're solid on your standards, your values are in alignment.
Right.
So when you're able to come into a situation and you're holding your partner or your spouse accountable, you don't have to question where it's coming from.
Yes,
and exactly. You can talk to each other clearly and openly and understand that it's coming from a place of love and realizing that I'm trying to make sure that we're still moving in this direction together because something seems off. And like, that's the gift of being in alignment with somebody inside of your marriage. Like that's that oneness, you know what I mean? And like, I think that's really like the most important first step is first making sure that, for one, you know where you are together inside of your relationship, and then deciding like, hey, where are we going together? Like, what is our shared vision? Like, what does the future of our relationship need to look like? Not just what we're going to do and what type of experiences we want to have, but who do we want to become as individuals and as a couple inside of this relationship? And how are we going to go about that together? What do we want to stand for? What are the things that are important to us? What character traits do we deem, valuable or respectable or whatever the case inside of the relationship? Like, how are we making sure that we're carrying ourselves in a way that we value and that we love and appreciate, and all of those things to make sure that you're moving in alignment. Because again, when life starts to happen or when things start to slip, if they start to slip, whatever the case may be, you got somebody there who can immediately snatch your ass back in line, in alignment.
Yeah.
And keep you moving in the right direction. And that's a gift.
Yeah.
Because a lot of motherfuckers will let your ass wreck.
Listen.
You know what I mean? And let you go completely left and won't say nothing to you until you done already crashed out.
Yeah. And I think like, ain't that a part of like what the point of the marriage is? Like, okay, we're trying to figure out life together and we're working towards this particular direction together. We want to watch each other grow. We want to both be better together for ourselves, for our relationship, and everything we want to do. Like that's what marriage is for.
Yeah.
So I'm always kind of like confused as to what people's idea of what a marriage actually is. Because to me, like, marriage is one of the probably biggest forms of freaking personal growth. Like, without you, there's things about myself that I would have not known. I wouldn't have known about myself. I would not have known about myself if it wasn't for you pointing it out. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, if you're not growing in your marriage, what is the point of y'all having this commitment to each other?
Yeah.
And does it make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
And I'm a firm believer in the fact, man, if you're not growing, you're dying.
Right.
You know what I mean? If you're not intentional about what you're pouring into something, then like deposits are coming out regardless.
Right.
I mean, not deposits are coming out. Like deposits have to be going in because stuff is getting withdrawn. Like the world is taking stuff from you all day, every day.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like you got people pulling for your attention.
Yeah.
You know, they want your time.
Mm-hmm.
People who want you to be something that maybe you don't want to be.
Yeah.
People
for
trying
sure.
to change you, trying to influence you. Mm-hmm. Like stuff is always happening around us. Even the environments that we're around are constantly like shaping us. Mm-hmm. And if we're not intentional about who we're becoming and where we're moving and growing to, different things like that. Like if you're not intentional about your growth, something's happening. Even if you're not aware of it, something is still happening. And so it's like having a spouse in your life, you know, who can really like be right there with you, bro, that is protection. That is protection from all of the crap that is also trying to influence you, manipulate you, change you, or whatever. And it's just what the environment does.
Yes.
It ain't even got to try. It's just what it does. And so at least when you have that connection with your spouse and you know where you're going and you have that vision, you have that much more equipment to be able to block out all the noise so that way you can stay on track. So like, I wish more people would just be aware of that. You know what I mean? Because again, the environment already has this agenda for you.
Oh man, you know that? That's true.
Yeah,
that is true.
And and the agenda is only confusion. I'm gonna give you 1,000 routes, and you don't know where none of these mugs are going.
Right.
And any one of them could take you anywhere but where you want to go. And so if you're not intentional about the direction that you're choosing in your relationship, and not even just in your relationship, in yourself,
come on,
you're going to be fucked.
Right.
What else? Like, what else you going to say?
Right.
Like the world is going to grab a hold of you and you just going to be freaking ran over.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. Like, if you're not intentional about who you are and what you're doing, what you believe, what you value, how can you even choose the right person to align yourself with, to be in a relationship with? Like, how are you choosing?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If you don't have certain standards and stuff for yourself. So, yeah, like you said, the world is going to pull you in different directions. So it's like, okay, what are you going to stand on? Period.
And locking in on who you want to be as a person. It's like, I had somebody one time ask me about, you know, how to start that journey of healing and just being better for your marriage and all of this other stuff. And the guy was talking about, you know, how he want to be better for his wife and his kids and all the other stuff. I'm like, man, that's all great and stuff, but you still got to want to be better for you.
Right.
Like the best version of you that you can give to your family, your wife, your kids, husband, whatever the case may be, it's going to be the most improved, the most developed version of you that you've worked on intentionally. And by worked on, what I mean is deciding who do I want to be and then working on becoming that person. Going another level deeper is like, what character traits do I want to have? What skill sets do I want to have? How do I want to carry myself? How do I want to treat people? How do I want to treat myself? What do I want to be about as an individual? What things are important to me? What values do I want to carry with me? What type of things do I want to instill in other people? What type of things do I want instilled in me? Like, what impact do I want to make on people when we interact with each other? How do I want to make people feel? How do I want to feel about myself? Like, all of these are the types of questions that you ought to be asking and finding the answers to, so that way you can know what you're standing on. And like, that's what improvement is. When you get that figured out, it makes everything better because now you have something to base your decisions on. That you know how to function.
Yeah, that, and you have stuff to pass down to your children.
Big facts.
Like, people are always talking about money, houses, and all this stuff, but I'm like, you need to be passing down values, standards, morals to your kids. Like, that's important. So if you don't have that for yourself, you can't expect your kids to have that either.
Yeah.
Or you gotta or they gotta go out into the world and fumble their way around figuring it out on their own.
Yeah.
Like, no, set that shit in the house.
And on top of that, on top of what you just said, it's like you can accomplish all the stuff and still be empty on the inside. Like, man, it's so many people out here, man, who are well accomplished on the outside, but practically dead on the inside because they don't like themselves. Like, you can still be a high achiever and completely disgusted with who you are as a person.
Right.
Man, I remember one year some years back.
Okay.
Yeah.
You was finna try to
Many years
pinpoint that
back.
shit.
I thought about it and I was like, it ain't even worth the time. But I remember, a while back, man, I had a year where I was doing really good, in other business ventures and whatnot, when I was doing, real estate and some other stuff, had some months where I was making some good money and whatnot. But man, I remember one month, it had made what I would call a lot. We ain't gonna throw numbers out there, but it was just some.
You had made what you called a lot?
Yeah.
You said you had, okay.
I had made in a matter of a month what I would have called a whole lot of money.
Okay.
I had made a whole lot of money in like 30 days.
Okay.
Just grinding, so to say.
Okay.
But even after I had made all of this progress or what a lot of people would have considered to be great, so to say, I did not feel good about it. Like, it was just money to me, but I didn't feel anything. And I felt like I had compromised so much of myself and things that I felt like I stood for to get it. And it ain't like I was just doing things, like to hurt anybody, anything like that. It's just, I felt like what all I had to go through in the pursuit of some of the deals and stuff that I was working on, it just wasn't me.
Right.
And I felt like I stepped so far outside of my own character, my own values and things like that in order to get something to look good to other people. But I didn't like me. But everybody else would be like, oh shit, Tron, you done close these deals. You doing good. That's what's up, bro. You know what I'm saying? All of this praise. But I don't like me. I don't like what I had to do and who I had to become in order to do all that stuff. And I still gotta freaking be with me when all of the noise is gone. Like, I'm the one who has to lay down in the bed in my own head thinking about what I did and who I became and all of this stuff. I can't escape from me.
Right.
And people's praise don't do nothing for me when I'm sitting there alone, even next to my wife, because you ain't in my head. I'm having these conversations with myself, and no external success, so to say, can protect you from that, from your own thoughts and feelings about yourself and feeling good about the work that you're doing and who you're becoming. So it starts with like, hey, what the hell do I want to stand for? Who do I want to be as a person? How do I want to feel about myself? What makes me proud of me? And then from there, when you figure all that out, work on becoming that person and then give that person away.
Right.
Because that person will be a gift to all the other people you encounter, especially your spouse.
It's so good. It's so good. That was good, baby.
Thank you, Boobaloo.
Thanks for sharing that story. That's good. That's good for the people.
I hope it gave some perspective, man, because I know I done ran across plenty of people, who look like they were successful on the outside and miserable. Like, completely. Man, I remember going to a real estate event some years back in a mug. Externally very successful, but he was kind of envious of me and our relationship and stuff like that. And his world was falling apart at home. But he had all of the stuff that people would admire, but he was miserable. And I see stuff like that all the time, even today. So anyway, the main point is that if you want to improve your relationship, start with yourself. Know what you stand for, know who you want to be as a person, become that person, work hard on it, and then decide on the direction that you want to take your life and where you want you and your relationship and your family to go, and work on that thing together.
Right.
Become the best version of you, but know exactly who that is, and you and your spouse agree on it. Agree on that ideal version of you, so that way you can keep each other in check and in alignment with what's important to the future of your lives individually and together.
Right.
And that's it.
Yeah.
It starts with the individuals.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's good, baby.
Straight like that. And if you guys got any value out of this episode, please do, let us know. As always, it is a pleasure to be here with you. And I look forward to the next episode. My name is John Tron. This is my beautiful queen.
Adoria.
We are one dope couple. And until next time, family, peace and love.